The election campaign, and many years before, promised that if elected, he would bring jobs to the unemployed, abrogate the Versailles Treaty, and rid Germany of its Jews. He hated the Jews. He blamed the Germans and Jewish for all of Germany's problems, including the Depression. Jews had lived in Germany for over 1,000 years, had full citizenship, served bravely in the armed forces of Germany during World War I. But now, if he were elected, he would get rid of the Jews. Right after Hitler came to power, groups of Nazi hoodlums wearing brown uniforms and wearing swastika armbands drove around in open trucks through the city and grabbed any Jewish men they found on the streets and beat them up. Jewish students could no longer attend public schools, and I had to attend a segregated school that was run by the Jewish community. Higher education, such as high schools and universities, were no longer available to Jewish students. Nazis went around the city and painted on the front of Jewish-owned businesses, "This is a Jewish business. Germans do not patronize the business." The Nazis then passed a number of laws known as the Nuremberg laws, which restricted the civil rights of Jews and also restricted the occupations Jews could practice. For instance, Jews who were civil servants lost their jobs, and in general, these laws made life for us very difficult. I was spat on while walking on the street. I was called dirty Jew. I was beaten by other kids, many of them older than I. There was nothing that we could do about the beatings and all the other indignities we were subjected to. Since we had to go to a Jewish school, the Nazi Hitler youth knew where to find us. And they would wait for us when we got out of school and beat us up. I used to try different routes to going home, and I became a very good runner. Nobody ever tried to help me or to interfere in what the hoodlums did to us, other than to call us dirty Jews, get out of Germany. We would have left, except for the fact that no country would let us in. As France or England, Holland, Belgium, South America, Palestine, which was under British control, or even the United States. The United States at the time had a very restrictive quota system that allowed only a small number of immigrants to enter the United States each year. Shortly after Hitler came to power, my father went to the American consulate in Stuttgart and registered for a quota number for immigration to the United States. In addition to the quota number, if it came up, you had to have a sponsor in the United States who would furnish an affidavit saying that he would guarantee that the immigrant would not become a public burden. Considering the fact that that the number of quota certificates issued each year was very small, and the ability to find a sponsor was very difficult. Not many people were able to leave for the United States. I enjoyed playing soccer. Soccer was a popular sport in Germany. We would go to an open field that was near us and play soccer. Always on the lookout to see if anyone was coming to break up the game and beat us up before we had a chance to run away. Every day, whenever anybody left the house, Mom was always afraid of what would happen to on the street. And you would get homes, and if you would get home safely. Not that you were really safe in your own home. Sometime in 1936, we were informed that we had to get out of the school building we were attending. The building was needed for the Hitler Youth. Our school then was moved into an old abandoned school building, which was much smaller, and we had to go to double sessions. New laws were passed. Jews could no longer be treated by non-Jewish doctors. Unfortunately, there weren't many Jewish doctors in Dortmund, and some had managed to leave Germany. Initially, we thought that the Nazis would respect the Jewish war veterans who had served in the German army during World War I. These veterans had an organization called the Jewish War Veterans, of soldiers who served on the front line. In Dortmund, these veterans had a club and sports facility. We used these facilities, and while in there, felt some measure of security. However, sometime in 1936, the Nazis closed the facility. One Sunday, my father took me to see an opera. When we got to the concert hall, we found a sign that said, "Jews not allowed." New laws had been passed. Jews could not attend concerts, movies, or any other public functions. All parks and recreation facilities were closed to Jews. My father was an accountant and worked for a number of Jewish-owned firms, businesses. In 1938, a new law was passed. Jews could no longer own a business. All businesses had to be sold through an arrogant. The law said sold. In fact, the Jewish owners did not receive any money. The money went to the Nazi Party. Two of the businesses my father worked for were owned by cousins of my father. They both manufactured and sold men's suits and coats. One day a Nazi came to the office and told my cousin that he was buying his business. My cousin told him, "Okay, just give me a little time to take care of a few things." The Nazis left. My cousin wasn't about to just hand over his life's work and give all of it to the Nazis. He immediately stopped production and started to liquidate the inventory. A short time later, the Nazis came back, and when he walked in, said to my cousin, "What is going on here?" My cousin gave him some story, and when the Nazi left, my cousin and his wife and daughter immediately left and went to Cologne, and from there hired a smuggler who smuggled them into the building. My father was at the office when all this happened, and came home. He told the story to my mother, who said to my father, "You must leave immediately, because you know about it and did not report it to the police. The Gestapo, which was the secret police, will come and arrest you." My father left immediately. I was 12 years old at the time. I had gone to school that morning, and when I came home from school, my father was gone. For the Thursday, it was Thursday, September 20th, 1938. When we got home from school, my mother got my sister and me together and told us that we had to be brave, that Papa had to leave, and that no matter what, we didn't know where Papa was, and we really didn't. That evening, my mother collected all the photos that we had that had my father's picture in them and burned them. She did not want the Gestapo to have a photo of my father so that it would be more difficult for them to find him. In fact, my father went to a nearby city, Gelsenkirchen, where a first cousin lived, and spent the night there. In the morning, my cousin had a car, drove him to Cologne, where my father hired a smuggler who got him into Belgium. The next morning, after my father left, the Gestapo came to our house and wanted to know where my father was. My mother told them that he had gone to work. When they told her he wasn't there, she told them that you must have him. What did you do to him? My mother stuck to the story. After a week of questioning, they left us alone. Shortly thereafter, my sister was diagnosed as having diabetes. She needed medical care and medication. There was only one Jewish doctor left, and medication was difficult to obtain. Because of restriction on us, our situation was getting very desperate. There lived in Germany about 30,000 Jews who were Polish citizens, who had migrated to Germany from Poland to Germany at the beginning of the 20th century to escape anti-Semitic persecution in Poland and also for economic reasons. Without warning, on a Friday morning on October 28, 1938 at 5:30 in the morning, police knocked at our doors. They were arresting all the Polish Jews who lived in Germany and deporting them to Poland. Early that morning, they took away my grandmother, an aunt and uncle, and a number of cousins. They were allowed to take only the things with them that they could carry. They were put on a train and deported to Poland, where they brought to the Polish border and dropped off in an open field. I never saw my grandmother, uncle, aunt, and cousins again. They were all murdered by the Nazis. Among the people that were deported that day was a couple by the name of Greenspan. The Greenspans had a son, about 17 or 18 years old, who lived in Paris, France. He was so incensed by what had happened to his parents that he took a gun and shot the first secretary of the German embassy in Paris. The first secretary was severely wounded and succumbed to his wounds a day or two later, and died through the night of November 8, 1938. We immediately realized that we were in big trouble. That morning, Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, got on the radio and told the German people that the Jews must be punished for this crime. On the night of November 9, 10, 1938, millions of Germans took to the streets and burned all the synagogues in Germany. My sister and I had gone to bed and be awakened by terrible noises in the street. I got up and asked my mother what was going on. She told me that there were some drunks outside. I got up and peered out from behind the curtains and could see that the synagogue a little further down the street was burning. There were thousands of people in the street, breaking windows, and there were people yelling, "Juden raus," and Juden verrecken, which meant out with the Jews and exterminate them. At that moment, I thought that I was going to die. They were going from house to house, apartment to apartment, where Jewish people lived, as well as Jewish businesses, and smashing any glass, crystal, dishes, store windows, beating up Jewish men, and taking many of them to concentration camps. During that night, they came into our house, and a very kind and brave Christian woman who lived in the apartment on the top floor went down and told them that we all had been deported on October 28th. She showed them the seals that the police had put on the apartment where my grandmother and aunt and uncle had lived, and they left. Around 9 in the morning, they came back. And this time, they came into our apartment and started to smash our dishes, crystals, cutting up our bedding, and beating a friend who was in our apartment, knocking out his front teeth. Among the Nazis that came into the apartment was a policeman. My mother told the policeman, "Why are you allowing these people to do this to us? You are supposed to protect us." The policeman told her, "You dirty Jew, we want you to get out of Germany." My mother then grabbed my sister and I and ran out of the house and went to the police station and demanded that they protect us. The policeman behind the desk said, "Okay, I'll put you in protective custody," and started to take a key out. My mother then took us by the hand and ran out of the police station. People who were put in protective custody never came back. When we got home, the Nazis had left our apartment in a big mess. There was broken glass, broken dishes, feathers from our bedding, and belongings strewn all over the apartment. That night, the night of November 9th to 10th, became known as Crystal Night. And during that night, 91 Jews were murdered, 30,000 Jewish men were taken to concentration camps,